Tucked away in the Qur'an's Surah Al-Qasas is one of the most incredible agreements you'll ever come across. It's a contract for both marriage and employment made between two prophets, Moses and Shuaib. Today, we're going to do a deep dive, break this sacred pact down clause by clause, and really understand its timeless principles of justice and ethics. So how are we going to do that? Well, our guide for this entire analysis is the detailed tafsir, or commentary, from Ayatollah Javadi Amoli. His work allows us to conduct a kind of forensic examination of this agreement, peeling back the legal, ethical, and spiritual layers one by one.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to move through this contract in 6 distinct parts. We'll start with the initial proposal itself, then we'll define that core 8-year term. After that, we'll look at a really unique voluntary extension, uncover a built-in condition of ease, understand the prophet's personal assurance, and finally, see how this whole pact is sealed with a divine witness.
Okay, let's get right into it. It all kicks off in verse 27. Prophet Shuaib, having seen Moses' character, his integrity, and his strength, he puts an offer on the table. And it's this comprehensive deal that so skillfully weaves together a personal proposal with a professional contract. The whole negotiation opens with just startling clarity. There's no beating around the bush. Shuaib says it directly. Indeed, I wish to wed you one of these, my 2 daughters. This is the personal side of the equation, the first half of a 2-part proposal. Now, this is where the commentary reveals the legal genius at play here. This isn't just one simple offer. It's actually 2 intertwined contracts. You have the marriage contract, the nikah, and then you have an employment contract. And the genius part is that Moses' service is the dowry, the mahar. The analysis also brings up a really crucial point in Islamic law. While the initial offer could be a little ambiguous, one of my 2 daughters, for the final binding agreement to be valid, the specific daughter would have had to be named. That detail is critical. So the natural question is, what's the price for this marriage? The dowry isn't gold or silver. It's time and labor. This next clause establishes the core, the absolute non-negotiable term of Moses' service. The verse lays it out plainly, that you serve me for 8 years. This right here is the foundational obligation. The Arabic term, thamaniya hijaj, sets the mandatory period of service that Moses has to fulfill. No ambiguity there. Now, you might be looking at that word, hijaj, which is the plural of hijja, and wondering why that specific word was used for years. Well, the commentary explains it beautifully. Since the great Hajj pilgrimage happens once a year, every year, the term hijja became a linguistic marker for one full cycle, one full year. So using thamaniya hijaj makes the time frame totally unambiguous, 8 full years of service. But here's where the contract gets even more interesting. It doesn't just stop at the mandatory part. Shuaib immediately adds an optional clause, and this completely shifts the dynamic. It introduces this element of goodwill, and importantly, personal choice for Moses.
And you can see the whole dynamic of the contract laid out right here. On one side, you have the wajib. That's the absolute 8-year obligation. But on the other, you have the ikhtiyar, the choice. Shuaib says, if you complete 10, it is from you, which puts the decision for those extra 2 years entirely in Moses' hands. According to the commentary, these 2 extra years are considered an act of fadl, which is like a voluntary act of grace or goodwill coming from Moses. They are explicitly not part of the requirement. This structure is brilliant because it protects Moses from being exploited, but also gives him the chance to show his own noble character. Next, Shuaib adds a clause that isn't about timelines or tasks at all. It's about the spirit of the agreement, the very nature of their relationship. He makes a promise about his own conduct as an employer. He states, "And I do not wish to impose hardship upon you." Now, this is so much more than just a nice thing to say. It's a profound statement that sets the tone for their entire 8 to 10-year relationship before it even begins.
And the commentary is clear on this. This is not just a pleasantry. It's a binding condition of the contract itself. Shuaib is basically saying, part of this deal is my promise that I will be a just and fair employer. I will not exploit you or make your work unbearable. This says everything about his own prophetic character. And to really solidify this commitment to fairness, Shuaib offers one final piece of assurance. He essentially stakes his own spiritual reputation on his promise to be just. He wraps up his offer by saying, "You will find me if Allah wills one of the righteous." I mean, wow, That is the ultimate guarantee. He's telling Moses, a man who's just shown up as a stranger and a fugitive, that he can be trusted because his actions are bound by his piety and his relationship with God. So the offer has been laid out. It's clear, it's just, it's balanced. The negotiation culminates in verse 28, and the power now shifts entirely to Moses to accept the terms and finalize this pact. And Moses' response is just as methodical and brilliant as the offer itself. He confirms the contract in 3 distinct steps. First, he gives his clear acceptance. That is a deal between me and you. Second, he clarifies the key term, repeating back that he has the freedom to choose between 8 or 10 years without any penalty. And third, he does something that elevates the entire agreement to a whole new level. This final clause, spoken by Moses, seals the contract with divine authority, and Allah is a witness to what we say. The commentary explains that the word used here, wakil, is so powerful. It means more than just a witness. It implies a trustee, a guarantor. God is now the ultimate enforcer of this agreement, which transforms it from a simple worldly contract into a sacred covenant. So when you do this kind of forensic breakdown, you realize this seemingly simple arrangement is actually a sophisticated masterclass in ethical engagement. Every single clause is built on clarity, fairness, and mutual respect. And it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. How can the principles embedded in this ancient contract, principles of clarity, choice, ease, and divine accountability, how can they inform the agreements we make in our own lives today?